Hi everyone and welcome back. For today's video I have the part 3 of my series exploring packs, in which I just get one DLC and base game to create different builds. Today I try to prepare a bookshop slash bakery slash apartment on Magnolia Promenade. If you want to see how this turns out, just sit back, relax, and let's begin. Hi everyone and welcome back. For today's video I have part 3 of my series exploring packs, in which I try to build using only the base game plus one expansion pack. Today's EP will be Get to Work. This is the very first expansion pack that we got for The Sims 4, so I think this is a very popular DLC among the ones that we have available up till this day. However, I also know that this is a very limited pack gameplay wise, and considering building mode, I also think it's not the best that we have on the game. Some of us would consider this as a must-have, but I also know that some other builders or players consider this as like the worst version of, for example, businesses and hobbies. We're gonna go into more detail towards the end of the video about this comparison, but for now I will have to say that we need to talk about the gameplay that this DLC came with, just because I would say that for this particular EP, a lot of items that came with the build mode are highly linked to the gameplay of the pack. So let's jump into more detail about this. Basically, this expansion pack is focused on going with your sim to their work, improving their careers and experiencing different roles in different jobs. So building wise, as I said, this pack is very functional and gameplay driven. It leans heavily into an industrial and commercial style, I would say, and a lot of the items that we got feel very clean and practical. With this in mind, you'll find a lot of metal finishes, simple shapes, and objects that are clearly designed with a purpose rather than decoration in mind. So for example, in decoration we can find a lot of signs that are more for a commercial lot, and we can also find a lot of display shelves, for example. Then most of the items that we can find on building mode tend to be more on the commercial style or maybe on the industrial one. There are some sofas that are more thought for example, a waiting room, or a display of magazines as decoration, and a lot of signs that you can find on a retail store, for example. So I would say that with all this in mind, the biggest positive of this pack is that it gives us very unique and highly interactive objects that you don't really find in other packs that often. I think that those type of items really work with the retail system. You can find mannequins, display tables, and for example all the scientific equipment. So this really open up new possibilities for storytelling and gameplay. If you like, for example, this type of storyline of the evil scientist, or working on your own retail store, and that type of storylines, you will find a good gameplay and good items to build with, so you can create those types of stories. However, on the downside is that it's not a very versatile pack for everyday builds. So I struggle a little bit while working on this build, because I usually tend to work on residential lots, but for this one I had to change that, and I decided to create a mix of a residential part on the second floor, and then on the first floor it's the business. So in my mind, this will work as the owner of this bakery slash bookshop living on the second floor. I'll go in depth on how we can make this work considering the gameplay of this pack, but if I would have focused only on building a residential lot, I would think that a lot of items would be not that useful. So that's why I created this sort of retail plus residential lot. So yeah, with that, it's hard to create cozy or cohesive residential spaces using only the pack, or only the pack and base game. Compared to more recent expansion packs, for example, it also feels like it it has less variety or fewer fully developed furniture sets, so we cannot see a very distinctive style through the whole set of items that we got, because most of them were created with the functionality and the gameplay of this EP in mind. So we have a lot of things that could work for a hospital, but then we have a whole bunch of items that will work for retail, and then we have a bunch of items that would work for a lab. So we have those combinations, and some of this bunch of items could feel not related to others. So yeah, I think that that's one of the downsides of this EP. It came with around 220 to 240 building items, and you can see that this is highly focused on objects that support gameplay. I don't want to be too repetitive, but decoration wise, I'd say that you can find a lot of items that can help you complement your builds with debug or with the live edit objects. But with the regular items that we got in the normal catalog, I'd say that decoration wise it's pretty limited. There's a lot of details considering the active careers that we got in this gameplay though. I will say that usually when talking about expansion packs, especially in more recent ones, the team tries to balance gameplay with a strong visual identity, so the pack not only appeals to the players but also to builders. However, in Get to Work, as it was the first EP that we got, I think that this balance is not quite there, so it's definitely more tilted towards gameplay. However, we can identify 3 main active careers that help with the details and decorations in building mode. So we have the doctor career, then the detective, and the scientist. And the items that we have in build mode are highly related to these ones, and we can find a lot of objects to build retail, hospitals, labs, and a few elements that you can adapt to create, for example, a bakery. I am aware that it was part of the gameplay to create a bakery, but for example with businesses and hobbies now you can do a better bakery than with Get to Work. I did put the challenge for myself to create a bakery using this pack, Get to Work, and I think it worked pretty well, but gameplay wise you're quite limited because you're not attending the clients that came to your business to buy specifically some desserts or cupcakes or bread. You just display them on the shelves and they can buy that. I will have to fully investigate if that's how a bakery can be done using this pack. I'm not a good player with The Sims. I try, but gameplay wise I am very limited, so I tried my best to make this work so it will be not only a build in which you can appreciate the items, but you can also use it for gameplay. I'll go more in depth about the bakery option in a bit, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the world this DLC came with too, just because I think it's I don't think if it's the worst. I would say it's the worst, but I don't know. The Sims can always surprise us, so I think it's pretty obvious for most players that the world this DLC came with. It's really basic, really simple, and Magnolia Promenade, in my perspective, is meant to be more sort of like a commercial street rather than a world. So it's just a street and that's it. I think that it's like an extension of Willow Creek and Newcrest, so you won't have a fully developed world with this expansion pack, which is kind of sad, but I think that I can comprehend this considering that it's the first DLC that we got for The Sims 4. There are only 4 lots in this world, so there is no much space to experiment with different retail concepts, and there are 3 lots that you already have built in. So I worked in the last one that we got, the empty one, and I created the bakery just because on the other lots we could find the other type of retails that this DLC was made for. And there are also a couple of restrictions with the type of lot this DLC introduced. For example, a retail lot can only function as a retail, and you're not able to officially split the lot into a residential and a business at the same time. This option came years later with businesses and hobbies, so and considering how gameplay works, you can still manage to spend most of your time there and almost live on that lot, but you will have to use some shortcuts, or not tricks as cheats, but you won't be living in that lot for the game, just for your imagination or for practical purposes. Your sim can be living there, but you will need like an official home for the gameplay. So in this build I consider that limitation. So as you might see, there's an apartment on the 2nd floor, while the bakery and the bookshop are downstairs. The only condition to make this work basically is that your sim technically lives in a different lot, as I said, but it doesn't need to go back to that lot that often, so that's not a problem. If you have all like the items to keep the necessities up for your sim, you can just spend your whole life there. You don't need to have the retail open for it to work as a lot, and you can also fully furnish the whole department without any restrictions of space, items, or tiles, as we have with other type of lots. And you can also keep the apartment private, so you can always lock the door for other sims. I'll leave you footage on screen so you can see how you can do it. And the good thing is that you have the option also to lock it for clients, or put the door open for employees, and that way you can create like private spaces for your sims and for the employees that work in your retail. So you can keep your apartment or the residential side private, and that's good because that way it works as a split lot, but officially and for the game it is not, and you'll still have to have another lot for your sim or your household. Then well, for the exterior I tried to replicate what we can see in the other builds already created by Maxis, but with a bit more warmth. Considering the style of the pack, I kept its structure quite functional, using brick neutral tones and storefront elements, so we can like sort of mix what we can find on Willow Creek and what we can find also in this world. And I try to put a lot of decoration or details with the things that we got on building mode, so I try to use a lot of plants, I think, and a lot of debug and live edit objects. Especially in the interior, you will see that a lot of the things that I get to work with could be repetitive if it wasn't for debug. So yeah, Talking more about the interior, I think that I followed a similar idea and tried to take advantage of the items that this EP came with. So basically, for the whole residential area, I think that I took advantage of the scientist career items that we got. I thought it will be interesting to create a sim who is very into tech or science and reflect that in the apartment. So the son of the sim owner of this build is really into STEM, and you can see little details around the space around the space that hint that. And yeah, you can see a lot of equipment, books, small references like some posters about that, and there's also like a display shelf, I think it is, in which I'm showing like one of the awards that this guy got because he's really into STEM. It's really sort of like a genius on that area. Besides that, the gameplay being quite good and actually being interactive, I think it's good considering it was the first pack that we got for The Sims 4. I don't think this is the best pack to create this type of businesses with in a smooth way, but for the first DLC that we got, I think it's pretty good. And it's pretty complete because the retail system is not the only thing that was introduced with this EP, because we also can go and follow our Sims to the workplace and the whole system and the whole quests of the careers that we got. I think it's a very complete EP, and I understand why this is so popular. The building mode feels really gameplay driven, one more time. But besides that, I think that it's good. It's a good one. If we compare it to more recent packs that are focused on, well, work, you will have businesses and hobbies. So I think that business and hobbies tends to feel more polished and specialized, but, and I'll go more in depth when I do the video for DCP, but there are not enough hobbies for like the title to be businesses and hobbies. This system is really intuitive, I would say. It's very manual though, and there are a lot of limitations with the lot type that it came with, the retail one, compared to the business hobbies ones. Now, functionality wise, or the fact that, how can I say this in a friendly way? I usually feel like the Sims tend to sell us like the idea of the gameplay rather than the real gameplay. Considering this, businesses and hobbies is a good option if you like to use your imagination. If you like to use a lot of CC or mods that complement the gameplay that was introduced with business and hobbies, that will be a great idea. If you want something simple that you can just play with for a couple of hours, get to work, I think it's the best option. And it introduced a very good system that I think it's right now like a must-have in The Sims 4, that's going with your sim to work. It feels more like the foundation system for a lot of other things to do with The Sims, and I also know that there are a lot of mods that you can use, but you have to get to work for them to work, so that's also a plus. It gives you the tools that you need to create a good gameplay, but you have to do also work yourself to make the concept fully come to life. I think that I'm talking a lot of gameplay in this video, to be honest, but I think that it's just because the building mode is highly focused on that. And I'll say that finally, talking just mainly about the build mode, the best part of this pack is definitely we have a lot of functional objects. I think that the real retail system, it's fun, and it came with a lot of surfaces, it came with a lot of signs that you can use for other businesses, and besides it being really simple or like with the commercial style, you do have a lot of useful items, and you can reuse them in different type of builds if you have enough creativity or imagination to do so. I don't have much, so that's why I go for like an industrial style for this build. The main criticism would be the lack of warmth or the limited variety. Most items feel really specific, so I'd say that, as I said a couple of minutes ago, but you'll have to have a lot of creativity and a lot of imagination to use these different items in different ways. But yeah, I think it's not a pack you can use for everything, but when you use it for the right purpose, it works really well. Overall, Get to Work, it's a pack that really shines when you lean into its strengths. I think that focusing on industrial style and trying to use the career items as a plus for the storytelling is what gives the personality to this lot. So if you like storytelling, if you like working on different careers, and if you like creating functional spaces, this pack is definitely for you. It might not be the easiest pack to build with, but it definitely challenged you, and if you think outside of the box, you can create different builds with a lot of personality. You can go and create a lot of storylines, and a lot of different ideas can come out of these challenges. So it's a good pack. It's quite fun to build with it, and I think that my only hard criticism would be that we do not have enough lots in Magnolia Promenade. So yeah, you can spend your creativity in only 4 lots if you like it. But with that said, I think that we have reached to the end of this video. If you liked it, please leave me a thumbs up or a comment. Please let me know if you like this type of videos. If you like to see another type of content, please just feel free to ask. And that will be it for today. Thank you very much, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.